Hi, welcome back to Jonesy Chats Wrestling. Once again, we're back here. Going to be discussing this past week's SmackDown. We've had quite a few requests to do this video in terms of doing SmackDown every single week. Obviously, at the moment, we're doing Raw, so this is going to be a fun review. I'm joined by a special guest, none other than a returning member to the channel from SCW, Steve. How are you today, Steve?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. And like you say, yeah, it's fun that SmackDown is coming to your channel. And as it's SmackDown, I thought I'd wear some blue today for you.
That's good. Good. Yeah, no, good choice. Thank you for coming on. Obviously, so what we're going to do today for everyone's show, we'll obviously cover this past week's SmackDown, but let's start at the beginning. I've got a fun fact for you, Steve. So, January 24th, 1988, today, Sunday, for the day we're recording, Jim Duggan won the first Royal Rumble match from the Cops Coliseum in Hamilton, Canada. What's your thoughts of that kind of statement?
It's awesome to think that it's that many years ago that the first ever Royal Rumble took place. When you look back at it, I watched the '88 Royal Rumble 2 years ago for the first time, and it's very different to what it has grown into now. But yeah, it was where it all began. It was a fun match. People were into it. Jim Duggan perhaps didn't go on to main event or anything like that, but it became a mainstay name, and of course a legend in the business still. So yeah, it's a fun fact, and yeah. It's very special. The Royal Rumble means a lot to a lot of us, and yeah, it's where it all began.
Definitely. Interesting enough, this wasn't obviously a pay-per-view. The first ever Royal Rumble was just run on free TV on the USA Network, which is quite funny that it wasn't a pay-per-view. But no, very, very iconic. Always fun watch. I always try and watch that at least kind of once every couple of years just to go back and see where it started. But no, what a fun fact to start off Sunday. So let's get into this then. So obviously this past week's SmackDown, coming from the Thunderdome in the Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay, as always. So the show starts up. It's got a flashback, obviously, to last week where we found out that Kevin Owens is going to face Roman Reigns in the last man standing match. So the show opens up. We got like a promo from Roman Reigns. The promo is excellent. It's basically him saying that Kevin Owens won't see him coming. And it ends up with basically Roman Reigns saying the only reason why he was out before was because of global pandemic and his health, which was I thought was a fair point. It was a great speech, so to speak. The promo does end up with Adam Pearce coming out. And then Adam Pearce and Paul Heyman end up getting into a bickering match. And it ends up kind of with Heyman and Pearce ending up basically getting booked in a match against each other. What were your thoughts on this opening promo and the message that was delivered?
The first thing actually came to my mind because we spoke earlier in the week that we were going to do this. It was like SmackDown the first week you were doing your channel. I don't think either of us in our right mind would have ever expected the main event of this show was going to be Adam Pearce against Paul Heyman. I think for me that was certainly something a bit comical in my mind. But when you go to looking at the promo itself, like you say, I mean, every single time that this happens with Roman Reigns kicking off the show with Paul Heyman on SmackDown, there's always a direction of that story. It's always a new layer. It's always fun and exciting. Like you say, it was built up with Heyman and Pearce, against each other. They're being booked. A lot of the direction going to Pearce was due to the fact of that card subject to change element they did last week to get Kevin Owens in that last man standing match. And yeah, I thought that pretty much everything was pretty effective here. But I must admit, as a main event for the show, Adam Pearce and Paul Heyman, I did have my slight doubts in there. I knew it would be more angle than match, but I still was unsure of where it was going to go, but certainly was interested.
Definitely. I was quite surprised when we got that. I think a very fun promo. I really like the work between Adam Pearce and, as I said, Paul Heyman on the mic is electric. I think Adam Pearce has really, over the last few weeks, grown on me. I think he's a great sort of GM figure. Probably the best GM we've had probably since, I'd say, go back as far as Vince. He's got that sort of presence. You know that he kind of means business. And the fact that he's able to convey stuff over, I really enjoy it. I really like the way that they're kind of building up Roman Reigns here. Roman Reigns at this point, he's got so much power. He's got so much heat as well. He's getting booed. And you can see sort of that he really is the main man in WWE at the moment. He's really that over that he can actually influence the GM to do what he wants to a certain point. What's your thoughts of the booking of Roman Reigns kind of recently and his kind of promo here?
And like you said, he's the guy in the company. He's the number one. That when it's Roman Reigns, it matters. And since he's come back, we're going now SummerSlam last year, and he's been a heel and been champion. SmackDown has become the show that you mustn't miss for me, particularly from a WWE standpoint anyway. As much as I love NXT as well, I would even argue and say that SmackDown is more must-see of the shows right now. That's how good the show has been booked. Roman he's a huge chunk of that. Him and Paul Heyman together have been absolutely amazing. And I've enjoyed the direction of the layers through Jey Uso to Drew McIntyre. Now we'll go through Kevin Owens. We're going in a fun direction here. And it's going to be interesting to see where it's going to lead to through the Royal Rumble and hopefully leading into WrestleMania.
No, I agree with you, definitely. We then obviously had a fun sort of promo segment with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn obviously turns up with his documentary crew. He then ends up being sort of handcuffed to the barricade in protest. I really like Sami Zayn in this role. I think he's very entertaining. What were your thoughts of this promo and him getting sort of handcuffed here?
Sami Zayn is a national treasure to Canada. Let's be fair. He is amazing in what he's doing with his role right now. I'm loving the idea that he's got the documentary going on. I love that what he's done on SmackDown this past week. I think that it's certainly added a layer to this storyline, which has some seriousness from his point of view, but has some great comedy effect that comes to us as well. I love the effect they had different signs throughout the night as well, which I'm pretty sure we'll go into as we go through the show. But it was definitely entertaining throughout. For me, if they do not book Sami Zayn as the #1 entrant in the Royal Rumble for him to complain for about 3 or 4 minutes on the microphone, WWE are doing a massive disservice to Sami Zayn, because the storyline he's got right now is absolutely magic. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to play out. Really, I think it's brilliant.
I agree with you. I think it's definitely fun. I think it creates a certain sense of chaos. You never know what you're going to get with him. And the whole tweeted justice for Sami thing's fun as well. I think it's a merchandise maker. That's what I would say there, definitely. We then had the women's tag team match. It was Charlotte Flair and Asuka defending the tag team titles against the Right Squad with Billie Kay. This was obviously a non-title match. It was okay. It wasn't too bad, but obviously we got the women's champions getting the win. For me, it was okay. It was kind of filler. It's great to see the women's tag team champions working together, because that's not really been happening on Raw recently, so I kind of enjoyed it. My only real sort of small criticism, there was nothing really mentioned of what happened on Raw. Like, kind of Asuka lost on Raw. I know Alexa's on Raw, but there was no real follow-up to that in that respect. They sort of totally ignored that Asuka got pinned on Monday, which for me, I know it's your women's titles, dealing with another different sort of match as such. I just think it was there isn't that follow on. What's your thoughts on the match and kind of what happened?
I completely agree with you. If we take the champions first before looking at the challengers, I feel that it's great to see them on SmackDown, and perhaps they wanted to do... The story was based really around what was going on with the Right Squad and Billie Kay, but they didn't want to do another match with Natalya and Tamina in there. So I get the mix up. You've got your tag team champions, some star power coming over to the show. That's great. I'm just not sure it was the right week to have had Charlotte and Asuka on SmackDown. But like you said, it's great to see them actually working together as a team, because we're not really seeing that on Raw. So that's a positive. But like you said there, I mean, Charlotte Flair, not as crucial, even though she's got her storyline with Ric Flair and Lacey Evans. But Asuka, after what happened on Raw, I wanted to see some side effects. I wanted to see either a bit of miscommunication with in the championship match with Charlotte that could lead to something down the line. Perhaps maybe still a bit of fear, maybe a bit of uncertainty, maybe even slight character change, because everyone, when they face the Fiend, aren't the same afterwards. Is that going to be the same with Alexa Bliss? We didn't really get any hints of that on SmackDown this week. So from that point of view, I would say that it was the wrong week for Asuka. It derailed all the work done on Raw. But at the same time, I would say that as for star power, as for the match, as for what they wanted to get out of this when we look at the challengers, it certainly did what it needed to do, because with the Right Squad, obviously, then not winning in this match, of course, Ruby and Liv, they want to continue on their separate ways. But Billie Kay for me has been a standout on the show recently. I think that she is a comedic genius, really, with the way that she can use her Australian accent to get anything over that she wants to. Her resume, just everything in general with Billie Kay. She's done so well to get herself TV time. She should have been the Marty Jannetty of the Iconics that was completely into the wilderness, but she's actually becoming the star of the two, because she's got the character work nailed down. And I feel real sympathy for Billie Kay after she was let go by the Right Squad.
Definitely. I think you make some excellent points. And what I would say is Billie Kay, yeah, she's very entertaining. I really like the gimmick. She really obviously camps it up. I think it's quite fun. I think it's entertaining to see her work. Clearly, obviously, she's certainly adding whatever she's dealt with. She's obviously making the best of it. But I enjoyed that part of it. I thought she's definitely a highlight kind of the match. I've got one other kind of thing I'd say about the Charlotte and Asuka thing before we move on. I think for me, they've got too many eggs in one basket, having Asuka having the women's title and the women's tag team titles. I think for me, it's too much. I really hope that by somehow we're going to get the belts off Charlotte and Asuka soon, because for me, I think we need to get Asuka going back to a singles wrestler for me, because I think that her as a tag team, it's a waste. You're sort of diluting her a bit. What's your thoughts on that before I move forward?
I completely agree. I think that the only reason that this is happening right now as we speak is that Charlotte Flair can say she's been a tag team champion. I don't think we're doing this for Asuka at all. I think this is all purely for Charlotte. And like like you say, too many eggs in one basket. I'm never a fan of the double champion. We've seen far too much of it in the last 6 to 8 months. Someone that's the champion of one show has to also be the tag team champions. We've got so many talented women on the roster. Let's share the love a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. We then obviously had what you mentioned. Obviously, Billie Kay apologises to Ruby and Liv backstage. It ends up to her being kicked out of the Riot Squad. You get the sympathy feel for sort of Billie Kay, and obviously the Riot Squad kind of are there. What were you taking from this segment?
As I say, I had sympathy for Billie Kay, but as for the Riot Squad, I mean, it hasn't been working out for them. They've not actually picked up any victories since Billie Kay has joined them. I really hope that the long-term direction of this does lead that Lacey Evans, we're talking here, mixing Raw and SmackDown. The draft wasn't so long ago, but my hope is that Billie Kay is looking for that partner. And I think that if Lacey Evans continues with Ric Flair, maybe abandons Peyton Royce, maybe we can get a trade to SmackDown. We can put the Iconics back together because they shouldn't have been split in the first place. And then that way they can go back to doing what they do best. And Billie Kay has been so entertaining with what she's doing, but with Peyton by her side, I think these two are definitely a force for the tag team division. They definitely work better as a unit rather than individually.
Definitely, I agree with you. I think the thing with it is I think it's an interesting way just to see where they've all gone. Looking forward to see what happens. For me, I think if with this women's division or the tag team division, they need a bit more depth. They need a bit more challenges. They need genuine challenges to Oscar and Charlotte at a certain point. But no, kind of moving forward. We then obviously had Daniel Bryan. He came out. He did a fantastic promo on Royal Rumble. Basically bigging it up, and obviously got Cesaro coming out as well. It was really, really kind of entertaining. I really kind of enjoyed it. We then obviously had Dolph Ziggler come up as well, obviously as one half the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. He obviously got a mention, and this was just a fun promo. For me, my taking's obviously for it. Daniel Bryan did a great job of basically putting over his desire to win at the Rumble. I thought that's great. I think obviously he's one of the favourites to win still, surprisingly, which I think is they really want to get this whole feel-good factor back with Daniel Bryan. That's my taking from it. I think the idea they want him to be as over as he was at kind of WrestleMania, where he kind of won the belt, if that makes sense, where people are shouting, yes, 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 they want that again. But what was your taking from this segment?
Definitely. Daniel Bryan would tackle on first, and I agree with you. I think that they really sort of convinced me that he's going to be one of the main players in the Royal Rumble. Of course, we know that Daniel Bryan is a favourite going in, but I actually feel that this was trying to make fans at home convinced not only is their passion for the Royal Rumble, but this is one match that Daniel Bryan hasn't won, and maybe he just might win it. This could be his year, and they did a good job in conveying that, actually putting over the match itself. And of course, yeah, like you said, with Cesaro and Dolph Ziggler out there, Cesaro for me, Cesaro is getting pushed. He's getting over, like not just the fact that he's actually been winning matches like he did against Daniel Bryan last week, but also he's getting mic time. And this is something that I don't think was trusted in Cesaro for many years. But I really find him entertaining on the microphone. That moment where he actually put the mic towards Sami Zayn, who was still there barricaded at ringside, and then like pulled the mic away, was like, nobody cares what he thinks. It just, that sort of quick moment, I really found it quite humorous. And I think with Cesaro, this could actually be a breakout year for him as well. We've been talking about Shinsuke Nakamura the last couple of weeks. Cesaro has got the tools there to beat a main guy. And this really could be a year for him. I think he could be a dark horse in this Rumble. Certainly could be a journeyman.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I think, as I said, he's one of the people who's been very underrated. I think Cesaro's definitely got all the tools to be a star. For me, I think it's interesting. What I really liked about this segment is they did a great job of getting the whole point of the Royal Rumble match over. And what I'm loving about the Royal Rumble this year is we really don't have any real idea confidently who's going to win it, which I think it's nice to go into a pay-per-view event with no idea. Would you kind of agree with that, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the Rumble season is always more exciting when we have no idea who is going to win. And I think that this year, more than any, there is, particularly on the men's side, I would say that there's no clear-cut favourite at all. On the women's side, you could argue there's a couple of favourites, but on the men, really, it could be a pick of a hatful, really. There's that many names that are in the hat that could potentially walk away as the Royal Rumble winner.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be fun. Hopefully next week, kind of obviously when you do predictions on your channel, we do our predictions on this channel. Let's see if we're right, because I think normally I would bet on WWE, but I'm having serious kind of thoughts and considerations who to actually bet on this year because it's so open. But no, let's move forward. So obviously this whole promo went on, as you said. This then leads to a match between Cesaro and Dolph Ziggler. This was a very fun match, and I think it really did well. Obviously Cesaro getting the pinfall here, big win, obviously over one half the tag team champions. And as you said, I believe the push is there. What were your thoughts this match?
Yeah, well, Cesaro wins again, doesn't he? And Dolph Ziggler clearly then puts his name in for the Royal Rumble once again. Of course, he's been in the Rumble so many years. This, for me, was fun. It was like watching a match from 2014 where you kind of believe that both of these guys were going to get a push as well, because Ziggler has become a tag team champion. And, of course, at one point, you believe Ziggler was the guy that should have been towards the main event. transition, but Cesaro, I don't know. There's just a bit of hope there that maybe it just might happen for him. So, yeah, overall, for me, I came away feeling quite positive rather than negative from this segment.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great to see it. Obviously, Cesaro, as you said, he beat Daniel Bryan last week. He's now getting a win over Ziggler. They're clearly obviously pushing him. I really enjoyed it. I think this is great. And I think this was excellent. I really enjoyed the match. I think it was fun. Have you got anything else you want to add before we go on to the next one?
No. I think it's looking good, and I think that we're building something with Cesaro and Daniel Bryan, and maybe, who knows, they could be number 1 and 2. You wouldn't put it past it at this point.
No, you couldn't. I really hope that all this pushing of Cesaro leads to him having at least a match at WrestleMania. I'd love to see him sort of up the card in the spot he deserves. Really, for me, he's far credible than the spot he's in, and he's got real potential. He's obviously a former world champion, Ring of Honor, so I think this is the time to pay it off. You need new stars in WWE, so I'd be a massive fan of that. Moving things forward, we then obviously had the Sasha Banks Reginald match. I really kind of enjoyed this. I thought this was a fantastic match. Reginald, he surprised me. I was amazed how good this guy was. Clearly, WWE really doesn't like women and men violence on each other. And I think they were really creative and really good the way they got around this. I really kind of enjoyed the work. And this was excellent. Obviously, Sasha Banks getting the windfall here. Leading, obviously, to a match. We've obviously got a match announced now for Royal Rumble. It's going to be a rematch of TLC, Carmella versus Sasha Banks. What were your thoughts of the match and then this match announcement for the Rumble?
Yeah, I mean, it was entertaining, wasn't it? I mean, of course, Reginald was flipping all over the place, wasn't he? It was very, very tastefully done to get around an intergender match. And Sasha Banks, there was never in doubt that she was going to win the match. She never looked uncomfortable in it. Reginald trying to escape every which way. Reginald kind of reminded me what Leo Rush did when he first joined Bobby Lashley on Raw, of course, flipping everywhere as well. But the sommelier, Reginald, I think he's been such a great addition to Carmella for her gimmick. I mean, Carmella has been unbelievable since coming back with this new fresh gimmick. She really feels like she belongs around that championship picture. So it's great to see for her. So to see that this match has been made for the Royal Rumble, it seemed fitting. It seemed like that this match was going to be a rematch. And yeah, I think it's good. I think it's right. And we needed a women's championship match at the Royal Rumble. This seems like the most fitting one for me. It's the match that I want to see currently on the SmackDown division, knowing we've got the likes of Bianca Belair, Bayley already announced for the Royal Rumble match.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is obviously a really good sort of build. I really like what they've done, the recent work with this. And as you said, they had such a good match at TLC. So for me, I think this is great. If I was going to pick an early winner for this match, I think for me, I can't see Sasha Banks losing the title before Mania. Who's your prediction between Carmella and Sasha Banks for the Rumble? Do you have any early prediction?
Early prediction would say Sasha Banks, purely because of the fact that I think that we are destined for her and Bianca Belair, definitely in some form at WrestleMania, whether it's a triple threat, fatal four-way, singles match. But of course, there is time for Sasha Banks to lose and win the belt back as well. So it's not cut and dry. I'll probably have a good idea after SmackDown next week. But if you ask me now to pick a side right now, I would lean on the side of Sasha Banks.
Definitely. As I said, that's another match for the Royal Rumble. So looking forward to that. This Royal Rumble card's starting to stack up, and I think it's starting to look really, really good. Kind of moving forwards, we always had Roman Reigns backstage in the dressing room with Heyman. Roman said how unhappy he was with kind of Paul basically booking a match. I kind of like it. I love the way the arrogance of Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is kind of getting to the point now where he's so despised that he's turning on his own counsel, and you can't almost trust. It's almost like he's sort of imploding a little bit. What were your thoughts this promo of Roman Reigns and Heyman?
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I think that, like you said there with Paul Heyman, like he thinks he's done what Roman wanted him to do, and Roman's like, well, I wanted you to use your words. It was very clever the way it was done. Like you say, Roman's becoming despised, and the fact he's almost untrustworthy because people want to please him and they think they're doing the right thing, and really they're not. And I like the way this was put together, but I also think it was just a nice little placeholder for what we were to get.
No, I agree, definitely. We then obviously had this Intercontinental title match, defending champion Big E against Apollo Crews. They've done a great job of building this match up over the recent weeks, so I was really kind of looking forward to this. The match isn't very long. We actually get Apollo Crews basically getting a windfall by disqualification because Zayn obviously attacks him. What were your thoughts of this finish? And obviously Big E retaining the title here.
I must admit, this is one of the flat points of the show for me, purely because of the fact that we saw Apollo Crews with Roman Reigns last week. We did sort of maybe have an inkling that maybe Apollo Crews could be someone that could be joining the bloodline, just because of the idea, not that he's obviously a part of the family, but the fact that he could look up to Roman and could be someone that's not a part of there, but someone that wants to learn, someone that wants to better themselves, and they were going to do it through Roman Reigns. Grateful that even though they're not part of the family, that food is put on their table through Roman Reigns. So I was hoping we were going to get a surprise title change, and that would have led Big E to become a favourite in the Royal Rumble to then go on to challenge Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. thought that was the idea this could be going. Instead, I mean, this is where the direction could be going for Sami Zayn. I did love that the sign was held up there, not my Intercontinental Champion when Big E came to the ring. It's clear we're going towards a triple threat match with these guys. I do think the Rumble seems too soon for it. I would think perhaps it's going to be on TV, maybe Elimination Chamber. But what I would say is that there definitely could be some fun things coming out of this. But I think after the tease of Apollo and Roman last week, I think we were hoping for something more. But I would say is through the night, you could see with that narrative that Heyman and Roman had their attention elsewhere.
Definitely. I think you're spot on with that. I do see this triple threat IC title match, and I agree with you. The Rumble probably is too soon, but this would be fun. I think if they are going to do this three-way IC title match, this is a place really, if you are going to get the belt off Big E, if he's destined for bigger things, as we believe later in the year, I think for me, this is a way to get the belt off him without him being pinned. Have you got anything else you want to add before we go into the next segment, Steve?
No, I'm all set.
No problem. So we then had a sort of an announcement. The announcers mentioned Roman Reigns has apparently left the Thunderdome. Kevin Owens did a promo from his car. Very strong promo. He basically says that about his family, and this is what's going to inspire him to basically get a windfall against Roman Reigns at the last man standing. I thought the promo was great. I really like the mention of grandfathers there and the initials of tattoos. It was really, really heartfelt. Obviously, me personally, I've had a family bereavement in the last year with my granddad and stuff. So it really hit me hard. I think it was a fantastic use. And you're really getting behind Kevin Owens. You're really getting behind the babyface. What were your thoughts of the promo?
It was really heartfelt, as you said there. You felt that this really just gave another layer to what we're doing with this current evolvement of the Kevin Owens character, seemingly since he's got his main event pushed back, that he will not stay down. He will be the guy that always gets up, and that's what makes the last man standing match so suitable. But this promo here, for me, it hit on so many different levels, and it really connected, I think, through the television set. I really feel that this makes Kevin Owens the heavy babyface going in, and I know what we all want, perhaps with Kevin Owens, but sadly at the moment I still have a feeling that Roman Reigns will retain. But this really is the best built storyline anywhere on the main roster in WWE. Owens and Reigns has been booked to perfection, in my opinion.
I think definitely it is. We've seen this match obviously at TLC and a couple of other times, and normally I would be like one of them where I don't really want to see it again, but the way they're building it up, the way they're really creating this hatred for Reigns, and you're getting really behind Kevin Owens, I think from an in-ring perspective, even if we realistically know who's going to win this, obviously, from the start, it's still going to be a fun match to see. Have you got anything else you want to add before we go on to the next segment?
Yeah, well, I mean, just quickly, just to finish off on that point, I mean, Kevin Owens, like you say, he's had a TLC match, he's had a cage match in this environment, but both times he's not lost clean. He's had, Roman's had help, and I mean, this puts this now, will actually this be a one-on-one match? I mean, I will hold my prediction back of what I think will happen with this match, but certainly you would imagine Jey Uso will want to get involved at least, so it'll be interesting to see how this is going to go down, but yeah, Kevin Owens hasn't lost clean yet, and I think that's what keeps this storyline also interesting. Kevin Owens has been protected through this, despite the fact he's had losing efforts.
That's a very interesting point. I think well done on the point there. That's pretty analytical, pretty well observed. As you said, you forget that he hasn't lost clean, but I think this is going to be great. It's great to see the world title sort of be defended at the Royal Rumble, and it is probably the only realistic contender I've got for Roman Reigns at the moment, so it makes sense. We then obviously had this backstage promo. We had the Street Profits walking backstage with a fruit basket. Dolph Ziggler was there talking to Sonya Deville. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, Sonya Deville got the assistant GM job to a certain point. Basically, the Street Profits are hinting for a title shot. And it just basically left with them giving the fruit basket to Sonya. And it kind of showed that she's not really going to be sort of a fun-loving babyface, just going to give people what they want. What's your thoughts on this, and how do you think this fits with Sonya's past character as a heel?
I mean, obviously, they've brought Sonya in for this role. Can totally understand with that, but I mean, if you look at her previous why she left the company a few months ago with what was going on in real life, and people are very much aware of it, I think that we could have given her a big feel-good moment to come back. I know there's no fans in the arenas, but I think if you'd have given her a moment to remember, a moment to sort of give fans to appreciate that she's back and feel for her, I think that would have been a lot more better than what we're currently getting now. I'm not necessarily against the storyline. I think that work. Clearly, faith has been put in her from her mic work with her feud with Mandy Rose, which is why she's able to be verbal in this position backstage. It certainly has a way to elevate her up the card. I just would have liked to see her brought in a different role. But just interesting, you mentioned there, of course, with the Street Profits and the fruit basket, that felt like a very heelish move as well. They didn't feel like something a babyface would do. So again, there's a few things that were a bit mixed up in this for me. But what I would say is that it's nice to almost find out from it that we are going to get other tag teams getting opportunities, because The Street Profits, they have been in and around they've been champions for so long. It has felt a bit stale in that area. So I think it's right to keep the Profits out of the championship picture until WrestleMania at this point.
I'd agree. I think the thing is, obviously, we've obviously had this match before, and I think the thing is they've done this with them. I don't know, obviously, where you go next, but the fruit basket, I guess you could kind of take it as a heelish move. Well, obviously, the way they wouldn't give it to her unless you'd given the match a bit. But what would be an interesting turn of events, not they would do this, is if the fruit basket was kind of poisoned or something like that. I think that could be a fun way to go. But yeah, I don't see the Street Profits turning heel anytime soon. What's your thoughts?
No, well, Montez Ford had the food poisoning angle last year, didn't he? So he certainly is no stranger to it.
No, definitely. We then obviously had this fun segment. It's the Ultimate Athlete Obstacle Course with Bianca Belair and Bayley. Very fun segment. Obviously, Bayley does it first. It's very easy. She doesn't even do the course properly. And it ends up she kind of obviously has to lift Chad Gable on her back. And it's just hilarious, the segment. And then we then obviously have Bianca do it. Bianca does everything proper. But then it gets to the point where she has to lift. And it's not just Chad Gable, it's Otis. So he's obviously twice the weight. She does it somehow. She then does the basketball shot. And then obviously she wins the course. I'm thinking at this point, why is Bayley just sitting there? But then obviously Bayley attacks her from behind, really beats her down. Bianca's selling here was excellent. And for me, I thought this was a really fun match. It's designed to show how athletic Bianca Belair is. But Bayley, for me, I think looked $1 million. I really like the heelish tactic at the end. I think this really shows why Bayley's work as a heel is much better at the moment. What's your thoughts?
I absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, this is something that was looks to be kidnapped from those early days of NXT. If you remember the series format back in 2010, of course, I'm sure can easily find on the WWE Network those times Titus O'Neil was tripping over, running around the ringside area with beer cakes in his hand. They were doing those back in the day. But those obstacle courses were very much done back then in they went to the Full Sail University. But at the same time, back then it had nothing that elevated that series with NXT. It wasn't going to build someone to be that new superstar. Like you said, what makes this really good is the fact it really built the character work. Because for Bayley, she was fantastic the way that she put all of this together. The fact that she was so cocky that she didn't have to do the obstacles so well that she could just, take the easy route. Then she puts the EST on it, makes it harder for Bianca with the proper hurdles with Otis, which I thought was very Alpha on TV also. I like the way they've done that. And of course, with the beatdown afterwards, everyone here comes out smelling of roses. Bayley, a fantastic heel, fantastic character work. Bianca Belair, we've got her over. She is that athlete, that someone that could, amazing track and field background. We know more about Bianca Belair. We're building her as this star. We're doing it through Bayley. And both of these come over so well. This segment should have been a train wreck, but with the two people involved, it was absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed it. It's my favourite part of SmackDown. I can't lie.
I agree. You would have thought you'd see this comedic kind of spot. You think, oh, this is going to be awful. But this was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I really like the twist. I like the way they got Otis out there. That was a good use of him. I like the way Gable was there. I think it was fun. It got them TV time, which is great. And for me, this is clear painting the reason why Bianca Belair is one of the favourites going into the Women's Royal Rumble. I think she's got a great shot. Have you got any thoughts you want to add before we go into the next segment?
I would say at the moment that I think these two, if there are no surprises in the Rumble, I wouldn't be surprised if these two were your final two. But I also have a feeling that we talk about the journey person in the Rumble. I think that looking at this year, I wouldn't be surprised if Bayley was the journey person in the Women's Rumble. I wouldn't be surprised if she was the number one entrant.
Yeah, what I would say, Steve, for once I don't have to do this, I'm going to disagree with you to a certain point. I don't see Bayley making it to the final two. I think for me, if you're looking for a realistic, it's very hard to say who the final two is. I can see Bianca Belair being there, definitely, but I think the counterpart, it's got to be Alexa Bliss for me. I think that's my early sort of thought, but it would make sense if they want to build a feud up and continue the feud if it was them two in the final, and then Bianca obviously getting the win, but or getting the pinfall bias, or not pinfall, sorry, getting the elimination either. Have you got anything else you want to kind of add before I go on?
Well, you mentioned Alexa Bliss there, and I mean, of course, she's definitely a favourite now. She's put herself in this Rumble match. Obviously, a different show, really, that should be talked about. It's not SmackDown, but Alexa Bliss arguably probably doesn't need to be in the Rumble match after her victory on Raw last week. But she's a favourite. Bianca's a favourite. I do think Bayley will be there or thereabouts, certainly Final Four area for sure. But as we're seeing these two build their rivalry, it just wouldn't surprise me if they find a way of doing things as they do in the Rumble. Because Bliss, what I would say with her is that, yes, she'll be a favourite going in, but I do think she is able to be thrown out of the ring. So unless she's got the trickery of the camera or the trickery of the gimmick change, if you want, if we've got that fiendish Alexa Bliss, maybe that could change the game. But certainly the Rumble is looking interesting, but definitely with these two going into SmackDown side of things, there's certainly a lot of intrigue from the Rumble match, looking with what Bianca Belair and Bayley are doing. And I hope that for this, whatever happens, that their feud continues after the Rumble, because I'm really enjoying it.
Definitely. I've got one last point for you, Steve. Would you be a fan of seeing, obviously, these two face sort of Sasha Banks in a triple threat in Mania, if possible? Do you think that would be something you'd like to see?
I actually hope that's the direction, because it gets Bayley on the WrestleMania card, and I think that, I think Triple Threat would be a good way to go, because Bianca Belair, she's definitely able to do the WrestleMania match. There's no question about that. But if you're looking from a casual's standpoint, what a great way to put Bianca Belair with a little bit less pressure into that big WrestleMania match. You've got two people that have been there and done it before in Bayley and Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks at that point could be a long women's champion. Bayley looking to take that belt away from her at a WrestleMania moment. There's lots of things you can do with a storyline for these three ladies in the same match. So definitely, if I had the preference and was booking it, this would be the match that I would book for this.
Definitely. We then obviously. Oh, sorry, Steve. Have you got anything else you want to add? Sorry, you just broke up then. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just going to ask about if you felt the same way.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think Bayley deserves to be on the WrestleMania card. I'd be a massive fan of this as a triple threat. I really kind of hope it happens, but I'm really enjoying this feud as such. We then obviously had a bit on SmackDown, which I didn't really like. We had Dominic Mysterio and King Corbin. Obviously, King Corbin getting the win for here. I've got a couple of points on this. For me, a couple of questions, Steve. You maybe have to help me with this. Where is the rest of the Mysterio family? They've obviously been dropped, including Murphy, for weeks. They're not on it. And also, we've got the whole sort of King Corbin stable of him and obviously his two friends that have been dropped as well, Wesley Blake and Cutler. They're not there again this week. Isn't it weird how they're building up this kind of match yet various parts of stables are not involved? What's your thoughts? And what was your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, I mean, there are people missing, which is a bit strange. I don't know if this is due to, obviously, with the pandemic situation currently, because not everything's always announced. We know that Drew McIntyre, of course, has been off TV for a couple of weeks and recorded from home. So I hope everybody is well, whatever the situation. But it does feel like a little bit strange, particularly with Murphy and Aaliyah, because that was being given a lot of TV time. I know with Corbin and the Knights, that was a bit fresher. Maybe they're just not there for this week. Maybe Corbin believes he can do it on his own against Dominic. I'm not sure. But one thing I would say is that, for me, this didn't connect as much as last week. I definitely was more invested last week. But you knew backstage with Dominic and Ray that if Dominic didn't win and things his way, that they were going to do things Ray's way. I wonder if this is linking towards the tag team, or are we linking towards a WrestleMania match between Ray and Dominic Mysterio, as Ray has always dreamed of? Because if there is a slight, friction between Ray and Dominic, that would be quite fascinating to watch that play out. So it's kind of like, I wasn't so into it this week in a way, but I think in future I may feel very differently. What about you? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, definitely. I think you make some excellent points. I think if we're going to see Dominic and sort of Mysterio at WrestleMania, that will kind of make sense. In terms of the people missing, this has obviously been the second week that the Knights have been missing. I think it's unusual. Obviously, COVID and stuff, maybe that explains that. But it'd be fun. I think for me, where I've got the main complaint with this is obviously you're trying to sort of build Dominic Mysterio up as a newcomer, as sort of not a newcomer, as young and fresh and up and coming. Yet he's getting his job in here to King Corbin. It does nothing for King Corbin beating Mysterio. Whereas if Mysterio would have got the win here, I think it would have gone somewhere, if that makes sense. I just think they chose the wrong person to win. Have you got anything else you want to add before we go forward?
No, happy to move forward.
No problem. Okay, so we then go into the main event of the night. So this was obviously going to be Adam Pearce and Paul Heyman. Adam Pearce comes out. We get Paul Heyman come out. Paul Heyman then pulls up the line, card subject to change. It ends up the card was being subject to change, and it was Roman Reigns versus Adam Pearce. Reigns obviously went to the ring. He wipes out Adam Pearce's Superman punch. This isn't even a match, really, because it wasn't even a ref, but it then ends up with kind of Reigns just destroying Pearce. And then from nowhere, Kevin Owens shows up in a hoodie. Kevin Owens absolutely obliterates kind of Roman Reigns. It kind of ends up with Owens basically just absolutely destroying Roman Reigns. He obviously was going to attack him with steel steps to get stopped by the referee. He then does a pop-up powerbomb through the announce table. And for me, the show obviously ends with Kevin Owens standing over Roman Reigns. My kind of thoughts of this: very, very happy with this. Credit WWE. This is great booking of your challenger to Roman Reigns. Because Roman Reigns, let's be fair, he's never really sold anything in months and months and months. And not only are you following this up with logical storyline, you need to paint the baby face as having a chance, which was great. I think this was a fun segment. I like the surprise factor that Kevin Owens wasn't there as well. Wasn't supposed to be there, and he's there. And I really like the way this ended. I think this was a great way to build up your kind of Royal Rumble title match. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it was the right place and the right time to give Kevin Owens that momentum. The head of the table goes through the table, which is always fun to see with the fun use of how they can do little things in WWE to get certain parts over. But as for the Adam Pearce and Roman Reigns part, the card subjects change. Thought it was very cleverly done, but I will throw in a little bit of a counter booking part of where it slightly doesn't make sense, is the fact that actually Adam Pearce, it makes sense because he's an official. Would it make sense as much the fact that superstars can just change their match each and every week? That for me doesn't make as much sense. But as for the fun factor of it, I thought it was a fun twist. I actually feel like perhaps it should have been seen coming, but I didn't see it coming. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. And like you say, I think it was a great job. It really added to the build of the Royal Rumble. You really did believe Kevin Owens wasn't going to turn up and wasn't there. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a great end to the show, and it was a solid SmackDown as always.
Yeah, I've got one quick question for you, Steve. Do you think it was really strange there was no Jey Uso this week? I felt that was unusual. That this is almost like Kevin Owens. He'd done great to get the attack on him and seize the initiative, but it was very weird that Jey Uso didn't kind of make any sort of save.
Yeah, it was strange he wasn't there. I think even more strange, there was no explanation either that he wasn't there. And that makes you, again, wonder or perhaps currently worry with the current things going on in the world. But let's hope everything's all right. Let's hope that maybe he's just missed 1 week for whatever reason, that he will be back next week and, of course, in time for the Rumble.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to kind of final thoughts and scoring the show then. So for me, this was a really fun show. Lots of fun stuff. The Reginald thing surprised me. I was really impressed. They've done a great job of building up matches. And compared to Raw, this was night and day, really. So for me, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I'm really looking forward to this Royal Rumble card. They're doing a kind of a great job. If I was going to score this, I would go for a 7 out of 10. I think it hasn't been as good as the recent kind of weeks in SmackDown, but it's still been night and day above kind of Raw. What was your thoughts and final thoughts and score, Steve?
It's amazing to think that SmackDown and Raw are booked by the same company. That's my first head and shoulders above Raw. And like I said, I think it's the most must-see weekly show in WWE right now. Not to be a copycat, but I'm going to be a copycat. I think 7 is a great mark to give, and I think it's a fair mark to give for the show. I agree it's not been as strong as previous weeks. I think there have been better SmackDowns than what this one does. There are some nitpick things where I think a few things don't quite add up. But what I would say is this was a fun show, and it continually always is a fun show. I don't know if it's the fact that it's just be storylines going on throughout the show, and a lot of things linked together, which I really liked as well. The fact that Sami Zayn was there locked, on the barricade for such a long time with those different signs, interacting with other superstars throughout the night, like Sasha Banks, Big E. There was a lot of fun with this show. So no, I really enjoyed it, and I think 7 is a fair score.
Definitely. I've got 1 or 2 last points I'd like to make. One key thing, I felt it was a real shame that they didn't follow up on Nakamura. Obviously, Nakamura last week was so over. They built back his theme music. It was very strange he wasn't there. Another one that was missing with no explanation. But another interesting point, Steve. Obviously, ever since Paul Heyman got shifted off Raw to SmackDown and has gone with Roman Reigns, the product has gone up. That says it all, doesn't it, really?
Absolutely. I mean, Paul Heyman is a mastermind. I've always said he's a genius. I've always considered myself a Paul Heyman guy in the fan base. Always a big fan of ECW back in the day and a lot of the stuff he's done. So, I'm a big fan of Paul Heyman, and I do feel that since he's been paired with Roman Reigns, you can see why a lot of people have been said as failed Paul Heyman guys, because the fact that those superstars weren't able to connect well with what Heyman does. But you can see with Roman Reigns, it fits like a glove. And these two have done absolutely magic together on TV the last number of months.
Definitely. Have you got anything else you add before we go to our news story for the evening as well, before we kind of wrap the show up?
I will just to touch as one further point on what we're just talking about, actually, I would say that you can just see that with a lot of the storylines that we've got, there's a lot of Paul Heyman influence in and amongst that Roman Reigns storyline. So I do think he has a lot to do with what's going on. So I do think that definitely a lot of respect has to go to Paul Heyman of what's been going on with SmackDown. But no, I'm happy to go on with the future, the further stories that you've got for us here today.
No problem. So we're going to go to kind of one that broke obviously this week. This is obviously from the reliable WrestleVotes. Obviously, WrestleVotes, for everybody who don't know, we believe it's an inside source in WWE. Somebody within the creative department of WWE. Their past tweets have been reliable. Generally, every single one they've done is right. But I'll go to it. So this is obviously regarding this year's WrestleMania. So I'll break it down as simple as you can. I'll read the tweet word for word. Once a decision was made to run the 2-night card for WrestleMania this year, the creative team started working on bigger ideas. The thought is WWE now needs 4 major matches, 2 per show. This is likely to require outside assistance from big names. Apparently, John Cena and Goldberg are basically done. The Rock is not going to be there, and Undertaker's going to be up for question. He may not be there, but it'll be down to if Vince needs him. What were your thoughts when you heard this kind of tweet, and where does this stand for WrestleMania this year?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, with those tweets coming out there, and of course the part timers always do get called around WrestleMania time. Big E made a comment about it this past week, I think, on an interview or podcast somewhere, saying that usually it's the guys that are there all year round. They're the last ones that get the call if it's for a Royal Rumble win or a title match at WrestleMania. And I do think that needs to change a little bit, but certainly if the legends that are coming in can put superstars over, then I'm certainly all for it. John Cena, I think, is a nice surprise, although I have said in my own videos on my channel that I think after the Fly 5 Funhouse experience last year, I think it would have been fun for him to have missed a year, because for those that just come for WrestleMania, it does kind of devalue what happened in that moment. But at the same time, for us, it has been a full year. Perhaps it has been long enough, but Cena hopefully can put somebody over. Goldberg, we know, I think he was always a lock either way that he'd be WrestleMania, because he feels big time. 2-match contract a year. He's doing one at the Rumble. WrestleMania feels the most likely for the next one because it's the biggest show of the year. As for The Undertaker, I really hope not. I know WrestleVotes did another tweet, which of course has said it just takes one person to be convincing.
Yeah,
and of course, Vince was the actual highlighted capitals in that tweet. And of course, that's what can make the big change there. But I really can hope that The Undertaker is done, because, I mean, his last work with the Boneyard match, the Last Ride documentary, everything, he's gone off into sunset so well from when he left. It kind of feels that you would turn around and say for him to then come back, it could really undo all the hard work. And we might need to do another part six. Back and as a train wreck of a match, he's then going to want to go and do it all again, isn't he? So for me, I do hope that this is the last we've seen of the dead man.
Definitely. My take's obviously from the tweet. Undertaker, I hope not. I think it would be a real shame for him to come back after the whole documentary and the way he's gone out. Obviously done that podcast this week with Joe Rogan as well, where he said the current product is soft. So it'd be an interesting call if they bring him back. Hopefully not. For me, looking at Cena and Goldberg's obviously there for the Royal Rumble. Seeing him at WrestleMania doesn't really add anything for me. I think that whole novel factor in being back is going to be gone at the Rumble again. And as for John Cena, it's okay. John Cena isn't the one he once was. He's not really going to bring, I don't believe he'll bring the ratings in. I think where this all breaks down ultimately is the fact that I'm pretty sure the lock-in would have been The Rock. Obviously, if they could have had normal fans there and multiple fans, hundreds of thousands, 100,000 fans there, for example, we would have had Rock and Roman. But for me, intrigued to see this. I actually think the other one we could probably get, I'll put it out there now, I think it's going to be Brock Lesnar. For me, Brock Lesnar obviously hasn't done anything with UFC. He's not at AEW. For me, I think the whole thing with him, he's a star. I don't know, obviously, whether he'll get the fans in still. But for me, I think Roman and Brock Lesnar, for me, is the match you need to do because of Paul Heyman. Have you got anything else you want to add, Steve, before we wrap up the show?
You just took the words out of my mouth. I don't feel I need to repeat, really, but I think Brock versus Roman, I think, could work with the Paul Heyman factor. I wouldn't be surprised if Brock Lesnar was to actually return at the Royal Rumble this year. I think that would be very interesting to see if it was to go down. I think that's a name that would make a difference. Brock is ratings. We've seen it done, even though he actually, keeps the championship hostage, sometimes keeps us passionate fans a bit angry. I do think a lot of us deep down, we do miss a Brock match, and I do think we would be more understanding have him at WrestleMania. And I think for once, if it was Brock versus Roman under that dynamic, I think fans actually would currently be up for it, where I don't think they would have been previously.
Brilliant. I've got kind of one last point, just for you tonight, Steve, as well. Obviously, based on this tweet, doesn't this underline that WWE should really short of building up new stars, that they really need to look at 2021 and start pushing new people, because of you're having to go back to the old timers, but all they've done really over the last year, I would say, is push Bobby Lashley. He's a star now. You pushed Roman Reigns, he's a star, and you pushed Drew McIntyre. Who else have you realistically pushed that can go into that main event spot? This is probably where the current product is soft and it's falling down.
I think, yeah. I mean, for me, I feel that they need to book other people better. I think that they've done starting work on certain people, but like you said, they are still relying on the name value old guard that they've got, the likes of Randy Orton still up towards the top of the card. But Randy Orton's been very deserved as well. He's really come alive in 2020 and 21 so far. I think that his promo work has been second to none. I feel we've got the Viper back to his very best. But yeah, we do need to build new stars. There are the stars there in the making. We just need to do it. But with the Joe Rogan stuff, with the locker room everyone being soft and, you know, all the guns and knives statement thing that was coming out, for me, felt a bit silly. For me, I think it's nice that it's a nice working environment to be coming into. But what I would say is that where we could look at this from two different angles, I would say that has that gone a bit soft? I mean, I would say that perhaps superstars are happy to be in WWE. I think that certain people, there's talent there, but I don't think people know how to get themselves over as well as they did back in the day, because the talent pool now is better than then, but it's just the fact that they can't get themselves as the attraction as what certain superstars were back in the day. And I think that's the difference of it. It's nothing to do with backstage morale or environments backstage for me. But I would ask you one question, George. Is this statement of everyone being soft backstage actually the catalyst to a storyline of what brings Undertaker back for one more match at WrestleMania?
Yeah, maybe. That's a clap for you. I think you may have the money on the head, money in the bank there. I think that could make sense. I think if they clearly do this stuff with podcasts. Look at the whole Pat McAfee thing and Adam Cole. That was a podcast. So yeah, it would make sense. But if he is going to come back for one last match, who's he going to face the Mania if you're going to predict it? Is it AJ Styles again, maybe?
It's the only one I can imagine doing, because Taker would want to work with AJ, and I know AJ could pull a semi to decent match out of it, and Taker would get to say goodbye in front of fans. So I can understand from that point of view why they would do it. I still am slightly against it, but I mean, hey, it's not my career, is it? I mean, the Undertaker he's got the right to do what he wants, but it just seems strange that people say they're going and then within a few months they're back again. I think it makes it seem a lot. You take it a lot less seriously when people keep doing it.
Definitely. So this has been Jonesy Chats Wrestling. Obviously been joined by Steve from SCW. Just before we close the show up, Steve, please tell everybody about your channel and some of the fun content you got coming up.
Thank you very much, as always, for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure to come on here and to say everyone subscribe to Jonesy Chats Wrestling. Honestly, great stuff as well. Really love your stuff with yourself and Josh as well for Raw, which I believe is on Wednesdays. But yeah, come to my channel, SCW, the wrestling channel. Can subscribe to that channel. Of course, it's Royal Rumble week coming up. There's a big week coming. So the Q&A is released on Sunday today, as when we're recording now. So that's my job after this. And then, of course, we've got the Royal Rumble predictions, which I'm looking to drop around Tuesday, and as well throughout the week I'm going to do if I booked the men's Royal Rumble from start to finish, so from numbers entry 1 to 30, twists and turns, surprise entrance, storylines, the works, all going into one video. So I hope anyone that's watching this will want to come and check that out.
Definitely. Yeah, I highly recommend everyone to check Steve's channel. I will leave it in the link below. Yeah, definitely. But this has been Jones Chats Wrestling, discussing SmackDown. Just want to give a shout out. Thank you to all the recent subscribers to the channel and the comments. It means the world to me. It's great to get the channel over. And yeah, no, thank you for watching the video. Please leave obviously a thumbs up and please share it. Obviously sharing is caring. But no, this has been Jones Chats Wrestling, joined by Steve from SCW. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you for watching.